till 2025 I made this video called finishing every series I'm in the middle of. It is like series going around on booktube that I really love and other creators do, and I thought it would be really fun to do as well. It's just a series of videos in which you motivate yourself to finish every series you're in the middle of, and God knows I need that motivation. But it's been a while since I made that video and I haven't made one since, and the reason for that is second book syndrome. I realize I have a lot of series for which I've only read the first book and I need to get to the sequel. And if I don't do that, I can't finish the series, you know? So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on 3 series and their second book and defeating the second book syndrome, because I really need to get a move on. So I have 3 chunkers, honestly. This was not a good idea, and I'm very excited to be reading them in this video. My first one is Royal Assassin by Hobb. This I'm just really excited to read. I loved Assassin's Apprentice, but I read that last year and I wanted to dive into the rest of the series, but like look at this. Assassin's Apprentice was like this big. Do you get my bit intimidated? But we're doing it. We're making our way through this series, because how else could I ever finish it? Also have the Dragon Republic by Kuang. This one I've been putting off because it's been a while since I've read the first book. I recently at the end of December actually reread it, so I have details fresh in my mind. So again, no excuse to not delve into this massive sequel, but I'm very excited to give this a read and then finish the series. That's like my big goal for 2026, is finally finish the Poppy War. I feel like it's been on my list for quite some time. And then lastly, we have The Ashes and the Star-Kissed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Crimes of Nyxia series, which actually started relatively recently. The first book, I believe I read in September, October, and I love that so much. So I immediately bought the sequel, and I just, life's been busy, so I haven't gotten around to this yet, but this video is the perfect excuse to finally get around to it. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. There's also quite a chunk of it. The first book also was around this size, so that's not a surprise. And technically this does kind of finish a series, because the Crimes of Nyxia series exists out of like 3 duologies, I believe, and of course this is the last book in that first duology, because each duology follows a different couple, I believe. I could be wrong. So in that sense, it also wraps up a story in a way, but I'm very excited to give this a read as well. So those are the 3 books I'll be reading in this video. I'm gonna start off with Royal Assassin, so wish me luck. Hi, so I'm a quarter of the way through Royal Assassin by Hobb, so I thought I would give you an update. I will say this has taken me longer to do than I expected. I've been very slowly making my way through, but also, to be fair, halfway through is 162 pages, so it's not like it's nothing. It has a massive book, but like I know this series is on the slower side, but I don't mind. I'm honestly still having a good time with this. This book feels very different from the first book, where the first book feels very slice of life. It also takes place over several years. It is ironically enough shorter than this, so this one already feels like such a different vibe, but I'm really liking it so far. This book is a little heavy on like court politics instead of like outside politics, which I do have to say, with the ending of the first book, I was most excited to see more of that outer politics. So I'm a little bit disappointed that it just relegated to the court at the moment, but also at the same time I love like court politics and stuff going on there, so I don't mind that either. And Fitz is kind of getting situated again, because a lot has changed since the previous book, and I think it's all very interesting, but I feel like almost nothing has happened so far, but yet if you don't pay attention for like a sentence, you're completely lost, which is what I love about these books. But I do kind of hope that as the book continues a bit more, we are getting a bit more story and things will pick up and I'll be able to read it just a little bit quicker. But I'm having a good time so far, and I'm curious about the things, because we're clearly setting some like lines up, and I'm very excited to see the follow through on those things and how different things are going to connect and how are gonna work together. I feel like right now where I'm in the book is kind of a little bit of a turning point maybe, so I'm very curious to see how things are going to continue onwards. But like I said, it is very slow, but I am always having a good time while reading this book. It's just that I can't read much at a time, because like the moment my attention span kind of starts reading, I have to take a break from this book, because otherwise, like I said, if you aren't paying attention for like a couple of sentences, you are completely lost, because there is a lot going on despite not a lot going on, if that makes sense. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the first quarter. I'll update you once I'm halfway through. If there's any noise in the background, I apologize, but they're working on the roads. I can't control that. But I am halfway through Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, and I debated for a very long time if I should do this update because I've been struggling with this book to the point where I even took a break from it for a little bit and like focusing on other books and if re-catching my love for reading before getting into this. And I was not expecting that going into this book. As much as Assassin's Apprentice was like a very slow book, it did grasp my interest the entire time, and for some reason I've just been struggling with this book. But I'm glad to report that actually in like the last couple of pages now I've really gotten into this. And to be fair, I feel like we're also getting into a bit more of the action than we did previously, but I feel like I'm finally have found my groove with it, hence why I did decide to update you. But yeah, like I said, I struggle with this, so I can't say if I'm liking it or not, but what I can say is that there has been an introduction of a romance, which I think is adorable, and I'm speaking louder because they're getting louder. I apologize. Like I said, we're getting into a bit more of the action, and I think interesting stuff are happening, so I'm very excited to continue reading. So let's hope the second half will be more in my favor than the first one was. So I have only a quarter left of this book, and all issues that I previously talked to you about are gone, so far gone. I'm so sucked into this book, and where I am right now things are so tense, and I'm obsessed. I really wonder what I want in like the first half of this book, because like the second half has my heart racing. I hate doing this update because I just want to keep reading, so I'm gonna do that, and I'll update you with a full roundup of thoughts once I'm done with it. But just know I'm obsessed. Okay, so I finished Royal Assassin, and I fear I have to give it a 4-star, which is very annoying to me because right now my brain screams that I'm obsessed with this book. I love it, and I want to give it 5 stars, but I do have to keep in mind how I felt throughout the first part of this. And yes, part of my struggle was kind of like my own fault, as my brain just was not cooperating with it perfectly, but also I fear it was just a little bit too meandering at the beginning. I feel like there could have been just a little bit more that kept me going. And I don't feel right giving this 5 stars, just considering how much I struggled with it at the start. But like I said, I think this book is so well crafted. Robin Hobb is just incredible at like making every word count. It doesn't not sound like that's the case considering how big this book is, but generally every word counts. You have to pay attention to everything that's being said because it could reveal someone's secret motives, and it all leads to the payoff towards the end. I feel like none of what the second half would have been as compelling, as impactful as it was to me, and I wouldn't have been obsessed with it as much as I did end up being if it wasn't for that first half, of course. And yeah, I've deeply fallen in love with these characters. I feel like I already like really loved them in the first book, but now I care for them so much that anyone thinking even of hurting them just makes my heart ache. And yeah, I really hope I will be able to read the third book much quicker after this than I did the time between book 1 and 2, because I feel like that also played into me struggling with the start of this book a little. Hi, I just got a quarter of the way through The Ashes in the Starkest King by Carissa Broadbent, and tell me again why I decided to pick 3 chunkers for this video, because what do you mean a quarter of the way through is 182 pages? But this is where I am. This is reading much quicker than Royal Assassin, thank God, because I needed something a bit more high-paced. At least it's not very high-paced, but it is reading much quicker, and I'm really liking this. The first book in the series, The Serpent and the Wings of Night, is one of my favorite books of 2025, so I was very excited to get around to the sequel. And I have to say, at this point I like it a little bit less, just because I feel like this one isn't gripping me as much as book 1 did. But that being said, I'm reading this very quickly, like I said before. I do think it's interesting. This book is dual POV. In the first book, we only followed Araya, and this one we also get the perspective of Wayne. And I really like that aspect of it, especially with the direction the story has taken. It definitely feels a bit more kind of like bigger and like more political, and I just think it's nice when you have all of these strategic moves, these political moves also going on besides the romance. It is just nice to have the love interest POV as well, so that you do know what's going on in his mind and you don't have to like keep guessing. So I really like that. I also just really like that they are very much at it's complicated point in their relationship after the events of book 2, and that's intriguing. And then like the grander world stuff is also intriguing. I don't know, I just haven't felt like super pulled in by this book just yet, but also like we haven't fully kicked in with the plot, so I'm presuming maybe if I continue reading this I might get a bit more into it. But like so far I'm still enjoying it, but I'm not loving it, if that makes sense. Okay, so it's a couple of days later, I'm not gonna lie, But as much as I was determined to read as much of this book as I possibly could a couple of days ago, my brain just kind of kept wandering, and I don't think that's a good circumstance to read a book in, you know? It's not fair game. So I put it down, and then the past couple of days I've been busy, and I have not been feeling like reading. But I've been reading today, and I'm halfway through. Let's fucking go. I would have to say that I am getting a bit more into it. Something that I think is the most interesting about this book so far, to me personally, is just like all the complexities between these characters and like their feelings, and like unpacking a lot of the stuff that happened at the end of book one. Like that really shook things up, let's say. But I also have figured out why this isn't like fully working for me as much as the first book was, and that's because I don't think this book has like as much of a clear directive, if that makes sense. Like I do think the storyline in this book is very interesting, but I don't have a sense of direction with it. I don't know where we're going, what we're doing fully, and I feel like if we had a bit more of a like directive, I guess, in this book, I feel like it would like pull me in just a tiny bit more like the first book did. But that all being said, I do still think, of course, I'm halfway through, so a lot can change, especially with this big of a book. I do still think that this is most likely going to be a 4-star, so it's like still very positive. I'm still really liking this book, but just it's missing that little bit of something, and I don't know what that is, and it's just like bit more of like a clearer directive. I feel like I would have liked that more for the kind of book this is. But yeah, like I said, I do think this is great. I really just like the unpacking of like what happened, you know, and there's these complicated emotions and connections and everything. And it's very hard to tell you about that without spoiling anything, and I feel like we're really diving into that at this point, because there have been like some more revelations, I guess, that really just are like, whoa, you know, I've really put things at the forefront. And also at the same time, Awaya at the start of the book was very like closed off emotionally, and she's even like acknowledges in her inner monologue at this point in the book, whereas she's kind of like shut that, has gone away from like the pain and like the grief and the trauma a little bit, and is starting to process and is starting to be a bit more open. And I feel like that also is just hooking me just a tiny bit more, and I really like that element of it. And then also just like the relationship between Orion and Wayne has been complicated since the start, but we are getting at a point where they're like growing towards each other a bit more, and therefore it is getting even more complicated. But I'm really liking this book, so, and I'm very excited to continue on with it. And I really hope the second half will be better for me than the first half has been, even though the first half has still been great, you know. So we're entering the final quarter, and things got intense. I truly forgot how quickly this book read. It's only been a couple of days since I last picked it up, you know, but I read this like from when I last updated you to now. Not a lot of time has passed, but I'm flying through this book, and I'm having a good time with it. Like I said, things are getting tense, things are getting a bit darker, and I think the stakes feel high, appropriately high, and I am very excited to continue reading where I just left off. Like a big, like not twist, but like something that's been implied before now just got real, you know. So I'm very excited to see where it's gonna go. I also feel like we took step forwards in the the romance, and I really like what's been going on there as well. And I really like seeing Wayne and Uriah just work side by side again. I think it was my favorite part of the first book, and for a very long time in this book they were not necessarily opposing forces, but they also weren't working together. So it's just nice to see that happening again. And yeah, I have a feeling this last quarter is gonna be epic, and I'm so excited for it. Hi, so I finished The Ashes and the Starkest King. This doesn't mean a 4-star. I feel like I explained my feelings on this book well enough. I definitely think the last quarter got like very grand, very epic, and I think it's very admirable the way Carissa Broadbent packed so much into this book without anything ever feeling rushed or underdeveloped. But as I said, I wasn't as invested in this as in the first book, and it kind of kept me, I don't know why, I generally can't put my finger on it, what it is that I'm really struggling with this book. Struggling is a big word, but why it's not packing that punch the same way the first one did. But this was still a really good sequel, and I do think this wrapped up Wayne and Elias story really well, but I'm so very excited to continue on with the series and see the other couples that are gonna form. I already know one half of the next couple. I'm very excited about that because I really like that character in these two books. But yeah, it's a 4 I feel like that's gonna be a trend through this video, sadly enough. Well, sadly enough, 4 stars are still great, you know? But I feel like it's always funny when I end up with the same ratings across the board. Although, you never know, the last book might surprise me. Hi, so I finally got around to reading The Dragon Republic by Kuang. I don't know why. Obviously, you don't know the timing while watching this, but I have been putting off reading this book for a little bit. I don't know, I've been scared of it, and I can say now that I finished part 1 because this book is split into 3 parts, so I thought I'd do the updates that way. I did not need to be like, yes, the first chapter was a little bit hard to get into because it just jumped straight into the action and was like, whoa, okay, kind of have to orient myself again. But after that, I got sucked into this and I read these, what is it, 172 pages like it was nothing, and absolutely flew through it, and I'm having a good time with this. I think this is such an interesting sequel so far because obviously we are still like continuing on with the plot, but I feel like character-wise, I mean, I dropped a book. But I think this is an interesting sequel because Rin is not at her best, the main character. She is dealing with her drug addiction in this one and with grief and kind of feeling inadequate, being a leader now. And she just has these moments where I wouldn't necessarily call it pathetic, but you could. And I really love how other characters are just like, no, not the time to wallow right now. Get your shit together. I really like that. I feel like that's so kind of uncommon, especially for like a second book and like the start of a second book. They immediately go this hard into it. But what we're doing plot-wise so far has like had me very surprised because first of all, we get something that I already felt like was a big twist, and I was like, and I'm very excited about it, and I can't give you details because I don't want to ruin it for you, but it means good things, at least I hope. And then we kind of like set up what the plot for this book is gonna be, and then we just kind of get to the point of that really quickly, and I was like, okay. But then we twist that on its head, and now I'm at the end of part 1. I'm very excited to see where this book is gonna continue because I'm like, okay, I had a trajectory set out for this book based on what you promised me, but we got there much quicker than we thought. And now we're doing something else, and I'm very curious on how it's gonna go. And yeah, I have a feeling this book is gonna be brutal. I know this series makes everyone cry. Book 1 didn't make me cry, even though it ends on a very sad note, but I have a feeling this one's gonna wound me, so yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm very excited to continue reading this, so hopefully I'll be making my way through this very soon. Hi, so I just finished part 2, which means I have arrived at the last part of the book. And my thoughts on the Dragon Republic have changed since I last talked to you. I'm on page 445, so this was the largest part of the book, and I don't know. I'm still really liking it, don't get me wrong, and I do like some of the themes and discussions raised in this, especially this book is dealing quite a bit with religion as well, and how that oftentimes plays a part within kind of like wars and colonialism just in general as well. And I really like those discussions, as infuriating as they can be sometimes. And I also, something I'm really liking in this book is just also the discussions around how certain kind of like leaders will let their ego take over and they know best just because they're them and they're not listening to actually smart strategic reasonings from our other characters. I think that's all really interesting. It also deals with grief in a very interesting way, and yeah, I do think this is doing good things, but I also think what this book is doing is just kind of like jumping around a little. I don't know, I feel like sometimes they go like from one thing to the next and I'm just like, whoa, how did we get here? And like I'll go back and reread like a couple of pages and I'm like, I still don't get how we got here, I'm sorry. So it just kind of feels like it just randomly jumping around and not always like properly introducing storylines or like properly even winding up storylines. And I just wish kind of like the transitions between things would be a little bit more smooth. And then also Rin is just kind of starting to piss me off a little bit because she just is very self-centered and very self-pitying in that way. Like she isn't self-centered and like I think I'm the best, but she's like very self-pitying and like doesn't really see much it's out her own experience, which kind of makes for moments where she literally throws tantrums. That's the way it's described in this book. That's the one thing I will give this book, is that it's very clear within the narrative that like Rin is not supposed to be likable right now. Like she's going through it and not dealing with it well. We have several characters color out, we have the narrative color out, but it is kind of annoying to read that this far in there has been like no growth so far on that element. It's something that was very present from like the first page of this book. It's still going strong. Like there has been like no progress within that, and I just would have liked just a little bit more. But I do still think the storyline overall we're telling in this book is very interesting, and I think we're expanding on the world in a very interesting way. We are delving deeper into the magic in a very interesting way, and I'm very curious to see where this is going to lead and how that will bring us into the final book in the series. So I'm gonna read the last little bit of this, and then hopefully I'll have good thoughts for you, who knows. Okay, so I finished the Dragon Republic, and I'm very sad to report it as a 3-star, which isn't bad, but you know, I started off loving this so much, but then I feel like it, and I also think the ending was pretty good, but like everything in the middle just kind of felt a bit like nothing to me. I feel like we spent a lot of time in this book kind of meandering and just circling around a point, and then when things do finally happen towards the end of this, it kind of feels a bit unearned, because it's like, okay, what's the difference between like now and like 5 battles ago, you know what I mean? So that was I don't know, I felt like a bit let down by this book, but I do technically like a lot of what this is doing. I'm very excited to still read the last book in the series, and hopefully that will like go up a little, because generally every single person I've seen read The Burning God like sobs. So I'm kind of hoping that will up things for me, because I also just like didn't really feel the stakes in this book. Maybe that is because we just like kept going around, where I just kind of therefore just never really felt like anything big was gonna happen, because we weren't like moving anything forward at any point. But yeah, I do feel like this book suffers from like second book syndrome a little bit, because it definitely just feels like it could have gone to the point a little bit quicker. But oh well, I still quite like this. I feel like every positive thing I've said about this book does still stand, but it just that overall it just kind of, you know, when you expect to really love a book and then like it's okay, so like technically nothing bad happened, but like you just feel so let down. That's how I feel with this book. And I feel sad, because the other 2 books for this video where I had 2 4-stars and like 1 3, like blah, that's annoying. Especially because the Farsi trilogy book, that one was almost a 5-star, was so close. So to have to wrap things up with a 3 just, I don't know, is annoying. But I now have read some sequels, and honestly for this one and for the Farsi trilogy, I only have 1 book left in the series, so that's very exciting, very close to wrapping those up. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm really hoping to make more of these finishing every series I'm in the middle of vlogs during this year, so wish me luck on that, because this video in of itself took me way longer to make than I planned. But oh well. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, if you want more of these finishing every series I'm in the middle of videos, and then hopefully I'll see you next time. Here I am again, the same situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?